Welcome back to this episode on the Daily. In this episode, I am talking about freedom, and it's a very hot topic. Freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, 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 freedom. And as a Sagittarius, a stellium Sagittarius, I very much believe in freedom, and it's truly like my priority in life is peace and freedom for me and my family. Like that is my number one goal and priority. But the way that I view freedom has changed a lot over I would say the last year, and specifically the last 6 months. So I want to share that with you, and maybe it'll resonate. And specifically if you're building a business. So let's go. I don't know if you know this, but I have a free training and it's called Persona, and it is 90 minutes long. It is a webinar, and it is all about how to build a personal brand using your human design and astrology. And I'm literally teaching you how to read your chart, but also how to look at certain placements to figure out how you are best meant to show up in a personal brand. And it is 100% free 99. So if you have not gotten your hands on that, I highly suggest that you do. You can get that by clicking the link in our show notes. But building a brand does not have to be stressful. It does not have to be hard. And it's not going to be if you get this training. Persona, my free 90-minute training coming at ya. Freedom is something that is quite the buzzword. I see it a lot in business, especially in the online business space. Oh, it's giving you time freedom. It's giving you location freedom. It's giving you financial freedom. Freedom, freedom, freedom is what everybody wants in their life. And as a Sagittarius, I have always, until recently, have really always thought of freedom as being unrestricted, right? I don't want to be restricted by my diet. I don't want to be restricted by my schedule. I don't want to be restricted by being told what to do. I don't want to be restricted. Anything that makes me feel confined, I'm not interested in it. But I've been doing a lot of healing in this area, and I've realized that freedom for me actually comes through structure, which is crazy to say. And actually saying that out loud makes me almost throw up in my mouth a little bit because I never, ever thought I would be saying that, but it's true. I'll give you a few examples of what I mean by that. So in my business, when I started my business, I was very much I'm intuitive, and this business is an intuitive business, and I'm going to build it in an intuitive way. Yay for me. That's great. And to be honest, it worked. It worked really well. In 6 months, I had made over $100,000 in my business. That's pretty crazy. And it was all by myself, and it was all very much intuitively led. And when I wanted to put out a new offer, I would. It was great. I had the network. I had the personality. I had the confidence. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I was good at. I knew what people really wanted from me. So in a lot of ways, it was very successful. And it became unsuccessful at a certain point in business, just, being fire levitating across a field and, hoping that you figure it out, it stops working. And I hit that point in 2023. It was the beginning of 2023. I was oh, wow, my business is plateauing. I'm watching it plateau, and it's not growing like it was. And it's because what got me to here is not going to get me to there. So I hired a new business coach that was far more strategic than I am, that had a lot of strategic skills than I did, that I really desired in my business. And I also hired an OBM, a business manager, an online business manager, who has now been promoted to my COO, which is the Chief Operations Officer. So she now runs my business. But at the beginning, she started off as a business manager. I hired a new assistant to help in the business, and basically said, I need my business to start to function without me present. And right now it doesn't. And right now I can handle 100 new clients, but if I got 1,000, my business would not be able to hold. It would buckle under the weight. And so it was a choice to put more structure into my business, to add in systems and back-end operations and team communications and automations and funnels and different client journeys, different sales experiences on the back end that could continue to sell, even if I was not actively talking about it. That was very difficult for me to release control over, because as someone who has built up until that point, had built a very successful business, being like the intuitive queen that I am, it was very hard for me to kind of go into strategy land to build a strategic and what felt like a very masculine business, because my whole thing was I didn't want to build a masculine business. I wanted to build a feminine business. But the thing about the feminine business is the feminine business cannot lead if it's not supported by masculine structure and strategy. And before this moment, I didn't realize that. And when I realized that, it was like so painfully obvious that this was the missing piece in my business. I had no SOPs, which are like standard operating procedures. I had no sales strategy or like launch plans. It was just like, well, we're going to wing it. And that didn't work, because then like, how do we relaunch it if we want to relaunch something in the future? So everything was just like new masterclasses every month, new programs every quarter, new this, new. That's not sustainable. That's not the business I want 3 years from now. So by adding structure, by adding systems to my business, yes, in the moment, I remember being so frustrated. Like it almost like gives me a headache thinking about it. I remember being so frustrated because I was like, this is not who I am. Like I'm a creative. Like it is so stressful for me to come up with like the strategy. But what I realized was like I wasn't alone. And the reason I hired my business manager and hired the coach that I did, who understood systems and strategy, is so that I didn't have to do it alone. And releasing that control and allowing for structure to kind of be the foundation of my business was the smartest thing I've ever done, because it's given me so much freedom. Freedom, which, by the way, I am still deconditioning. I still find myself struggling with sometimes. Like there are weeks where like my team has everything under control and I still am like, well, should I be doing something more? Should I be doing this? What should I be doing? And that is something I still go through. Not as much as I did, but by implementing structure and strategy into my business, what I've realized is I am even more capable of freedom. Being able to really work when I want to work, being able to work from wherever I want to work, not having to say no or yes to things because of money. The freedom came through structure. And when we added these systems and when we added this strategy, the business 3x'd and 4x'd really quickly. What we did in a year last year, we did in 6 months this year. So it's just the exponential growth and freedom that comes from that is so powerful, and really something that I don't think I realized was possible, or I knew it was, but I didn't realize that it would be as successful as quickly as it was. So that's what I mean in business. Now, the other way that like this whole like structure to freedom has really shown up in my life is through my health. I went on like a holistic deep dive, like, I don't know, probably 8 months ago now. And I got like my hair tested, my DNA, my blood, or DNA and blood, same thing, but hair, spit, blood, stool testing, like they did everything. And they really got deep into my blood and into my gut microbiome to really figure out like how I can optimize my health. And nothing was like wrong. I just, I'm 36 and I'm like, I know that my body does not function the same way it did 4 years ago. And like, especially since I quit teaching full-time cardio, like my body's changed a lot. And like my digestive system has changed a lot. My metabolism is starting to change. I'm 36 now. And so I went on this deep dive. We figured out all these things. I added new supplements into my routine, started to feel really good. But then I was still like, and even my diet's changed. I mean, even I was plant-based, like fully plant-based vegan for about 15 and a half years. And I would say probably like 6-8 months ago, I had this weird urge to eat eggs. So I started to eat eggs again, and that didn't agree with my body right away. And it broke me out, and my body had to get used to it, because after 15 years, that's a long time to not have animal products. So definitely took some time to adjust to, but I like intuitively knew that like this is something that I needed to do. but I still just kind of felt like out in the wind, just like not really knowing what to eat. I would always wonder if like eating this was going to mess me up, or like, is this what my body actually wants? Like I was just like still feeling, just by having no structure to my diet, really was like starting to feel very overwhelming, and it felt like the opposite of freedom. And so what I started to do was count my macros a couple months ago. And this is something like I've never counted my macros. I've never counted anything. I've never weighed my food. I've never paid attention to calories. It's just like I'm an intuitive person. So deciding to start counting my macros was something that was like very stressful for me at first. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so restrictive. But again, what I figured out is by having this structure, knowing these are my macro goals. This is how much carbs I want to have. This is how much fat I want to have. This is how much protein I want to have every day. And making sure that I'm going to the gym every day and like working, sticking to a fitness routine. I'll get into that in a second. But knowing each of these thresholds per day of what I should be eating for my body has been such a game changer, because I have so much more freedom with food now. I'm like, and I am very lucky to say, like, I've never had an eating disorder. I've never had disordered eating. I definitely have like I've had sugar addictions at certain times where like if I fall off the wagon with sugar, like I'm off the wagon and the wagon has like gone miles ahead of me. That hasn't really been an issue in a long time, but I really find that I have more freedom through the structure of counting my macros. So that's been really interesting for me. And I'm starting to notice a huge difference in my body. I'm starting to notice a huge difference in how I feel. And all of that came by adding the structure of like, oh, okay, I have structure in my food now, which means that like, if I'm within my macros, like I can eat really whatever I want, because we're counting macros now. We're not just like, oh, I'm going to stay away from wheat. I'm going to stay away from dairy. I'm going to stay away from all these things. Obviously, I didn't eat dairy anyway, but even now I've started to incorporate a little bit of feta cheese here and there. Like it's wild. And then with fitness, same thing. Like I used to just like go to whatever class I wanted to, whenever I wanted to, very intuitive. Like, oh, today I feel like going to yoga. Oh, today I feel like going to boxing. Oh, today I feel like doing this. And that was honestly fine when I was teaching fitness full time, because like I was doing enough cardio to like never put on weight. As soon as I quit doing that, like my body changed, obviously. Like I did gain weight. And I also made the conscious decision to calm my central nervous system and to really start to reactivate my parasympathetic nervous system, which means that everything is going to soften. And part of what softened was my body. And that was something I had to get used to. But I never liked it, because I was always an athlete, used to having rockin' six-pack abs. So when I started to have like a softer tummy and like, not as much defined muscle, I was like, what is going on? And I started to just, I kept trying to just be like, well, I'm going to intuitively work out. But I decided that I was going to get a lot more structured. So I like bought a fitness plan from a friend of mine in Australia who created this like fitness plan. And I'll link it actually in the show notes. Her name's Madeline, and she created like a 12-week program called Shred, which is like 4-week phases of different workouts. And so I started doing that, and I started going to the gym, and I would do like glute and quad focus. Then I would do glutes and hamstrings. And then I have an upper body day, and then I have a cardio day, and then I walk the other days. And having that structure has made me feel so much more free, knowing that I have something to stick to. So freedom has come through structure. Financial freedom has come through structure. Time freedom has come through structure. Location freedom has come through structure. So if you're building a business, this is one of the best reasons for you to join Scale to Six, because this is something that I teach all of my clients to do is, yes, freedom is the goal, but freedom does not happen by abandoning structure. Freedom actually comes by implementing structure. And one thing I've gotten very good at is implementing and teaching structure. So if this is resonating with you, then you need to come into Scale to Six, because this is where I'm going to teach you all of this. And it just feels so much lighter and so much freer now than it used to when I was chasing freedom without actually having a plan, where now I don't have to chase freedom. Freedom just exists and is granted through the structure that I implement. So I hope you found this interesting. If you want to join Scale to Six or want to learn more about it, click the link in our show notes, and I'll talk to you soon. Love ya.